with home sharing, because the person who moves in, they literally become part of the family. They become like, and they're always saying, "Oh, Mary's my Irish mum," or "Oh,
Mm,
she's like my granddaughter. It's like she's been here forever."
mhm.
Um, and because we do monthly home visits as well, and we're available 24/7, so
Yeah.
we are keeping a very close eye.
Right.
And the sharers know, God forbid, but they know that if they do something wrong, if there's a safeguarding issue, they're out of the house that day, and
Mm.
they're back paying, 1,000 a month on rent.
Hi, my name is Ronan Kennedy and I'm a career coach and podcast host. I'm interviewing people from various different careers, industries and backgrounds to find out what they do, how they got into it and what they like or dislike about their roles. So whether you're a seasoned professional looking for some inspiration or whether you're a new grad looking for some ideas and options, this podcast has something for you. So join us every week as we delve into the world of work, share personal and professional development tips and uncover the secrets to a fulfilling career. Today, I'm talking to Lucie Cunningham, who has very kindly taken some time out of her busy schedule to tell us a little bit about her career so far. Lucie, thanks so much for joining.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Ronan. Thank you so much for asking me.
No, absolutely. So can I ask you just to kick us off and maybe tell us a little bit about your career history so far?
Sure. So, gosh, I started out, I finished school in 94. And I went over, I, from a young age, I was always interested in nursing and, the caring field. So my path was always leading me to study nursing.
Mm,
When I started off when I was about 15, working voluntary work for the summer in the National Rehabilitation Hospital out near Dunleary, and I just had a real passion and grow for
mm.
nursing. My own mother had been a nurse, and
Oh,
I
okay,
kind of
so
wanted to
family,
follow in her.
family, family career.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I went to the UK and studied nursing at Middlesex University. And then look, it's kind of, I suppose, a dark story behind it. I actually, I didn't finish nursing. I did about 2.5 years of a 3 year um degree, and I had my mother, as I mentioned, my mother had been a nurse, and she died when I was I was a tiny baby. So I kind of wanted to, I suppose continue on her legacy.
Mhm.
But then, towards just before I left nursing, I found out tragically how she had died. It wasn't just kind of your normal, she died by suicide.
Oh, no.
Um, so I was going through a real crossroads in my life thinking, I was angry. I was angry at
Yeah.
her. I was angry at life, at the world. So I then took a complete career change and basically worked a 6 year long party. I ended up as cabin crew, long haul cabin crew with British Airways, and that was just fantastic. And luckily, it was pre 9/11, so
Right.
it was all very glamorous and flying all over the world. And after that, then I settled down, met my husband, ex-husband now, and got married, raised a family. So I was, stay-at-home mom. My 3 children, very close in age. Um, and then I went back into kind of caring career, joined an agency, and was working mainly in hospital, literally at the weekend. And
Right.
so I kind of went back to the whole caring industry. And I ended up working then in the home care sector
Right.
in Dublin for quite a number of years. Um, and it was through that sector. So look, some of your listeners might have older relatives
Mhm.
who have carers who visit them at home every day, be it once a day or 3 or 4 times a day, um, which enables, their loved one to remain living at home.
Yeah.
So so I was working in the kind of management of that.
Right.
And it was during that time I was in my car driving between meetings, and I heard, that's why I can never take responsibility or take credit for the idea of home share. I had heard an interview on the radio about home sharing.
Mm,
And for me, I always say it was like a light bulb moment. The
mm,
light just switched on in my brain. Um, so after about 3 or 4 years, of researching this, uh, I finally took the plunge 7 years ago, and
Wow.
I set up the HomeShare.
So what was the light bulb moment? Was that a problem that you were kind of seeing in your day-to-day work and you were struggling with, or, yep.
Absolutely. So with, again, any of your listeners might know that with the home care, um, usually the biggest package or the number of hours that people would get would be 21 hours a week. So
Mm,
a carer would come in, say, 3 times a day for an hour, if they're lucky. But that means that the older person or the person living with a disability, a lot of them are still on their own for 21 hours of the day.
mhm,
And because, very often we would have had, might have had, some phone calls with a carer, say 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. They'd ring me in the office to say, I just called in to Mary and I found her on the floor in her bedroom. She'd been on the floor all night long.
mm,
And more often than not, Mary would, go into hospital.
mhm,
She, might have developed pneumonia as a
mhm,
result of being on the floor all night. Um, so it wasn't good. It was not
mm,
a good scenario. Um, so when I heard this interview about home sharing, it literally, for me, immediately, this was an idea that solved this problem, or this issue that happens it happens every night of the week, unfortunately,
mm.
all over the world. People, if they're older or not even older, people, might have a fall, or God forbid, a stroke or a heart attack or anything at all, any medical
Yeah.
emergency. And by the time somebody calls on them,
Yeah.
that might be too late.
Oh,
Whereas,
unfortunately, you've struck a chord with me. About 2 years ago, my uncle, just 2 or 3 days before Christmas, elderly priest living on his own, took a fall, pneumonia, 3 days on his own, and yeah, he didn't make it through the Christmas. So very, very kind of poignant point you've made. You basically described exactly what happened to him. And when I think of the service you're offering, I wonder, if we went to him and we said, Anthony, we've got this amazing opportunity where you could get a younger person living with you. Um, I don't, maybe he would be super receptive. Maybe he would be like, oh, sure, I don't want a stranger coming to
yeah,
live with me. I guess you hear this every day of the week, right? Whereas there's
absolutely.
definitely a need there, but then there's also these kind of, maybe let's call them psychological barriers that we have to having, quote unquote, a stranger come live with us.
100%. I was only saying that to two people today. In my experience, a lot of older people, and this is, me coming back to my dad, my own dad as well. Unfortunately, it came to a stage that, he had, early stage dementia. And so unfortunately, I brought him to his GP and I'd said to the GP, look, Dad, he can't drive anymore. He's, it's unsafe. And it was, he'd ring me up on his
Mm.
mobile, calling over to me, going, oh, I'm lost. Oh, hang on, I'd better hang up. I'm driving around the roundabout the wrong way.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, so for a lot of people, unfortunately, it comes to a stage for not all of them. My granddad was 97. He was still driving. Um, but when some people have to take the car keys are taken off them, they feel that obviously, well, yeah, it's like losing a limb.
Yeah, yeah,
Their independence is gone
yeah.
completely. So then if family members or healthcare professionals mention to them about living on their own and maybe mention the idea of home sharing, they just completely recoil because they feel that living on their own, it is
Mm,
their last piece of independence that they have.
yeah,
And I think they feel that if they, invite someone to live with them, they're basically saying, okay, I can't cope on my own anymore. And
yeah.
that they don't want people thinking that. Ironically, home sharing has the opposite effect. It actually, um,
It's empowering.
it improves, it really improves people's independence. Even with, if somebody is in hospital, um, when there's talk of a discharge, the first question, the discharge manager, the social worker, or whoever it might be, the first question they ask is, who are you living with? Who's at home? And for those of for our householders who are in hospital every now and again, as soon as they mention their home sharing, there's no delay on them getting home. The only delay might be having the home care, the carers, the home care package, being introduced again, or starting up again. But that so that would be the only delay on discharge. There are so many different benefits to it, but so our target audience, believe it or not, is not Mary, the 86-year-old Mary who lives on her own. Her husband might have passed away, the previous few months or few years. Our target audience is actually the adult children, because they obviously, thankfully, the vast majority want what's best for their loved one, and they want to support their loved one's wish to remain living at home and not move into long-term care.
Absolutely.
So
and to have more independence and to be able to stay in their own home is a great benefit. I know my grandparents were super, super adamant to stay in their own home as much as possible, but then just with the level of care they needed, it just became more and more difficult, right? Because especially if old house, bathrooms upstairs, it's just really difficult, 24/7 care and stuff like that. So what really works if anyone's listening to this and they're just like, oh, I think that could be a good option, what really works in helping people overcome that barrier of like, no, this is actually going to allow you to have more independence. It's going to give you company. It's going to give you, someone to maybe do one or two things around the house occasionally.
Absolutely. One thing I always say to family members is it's like regressing 10 years. So the family members suddenly, overnight, they go and visit their loved one because they want to, not because they have to check in on them, check do they get into bed safely, go over to put the bins out, or they have to go over to cut the grass, or they have to go and do the shopping, or they have to, go over to heat up dinner. So for all of these things, that they're obviously the benefits for the younger person. But for the older person, two other things that I have learned over the years, having spoken and worked with hundreds and thousands of older people, the vast majority of them, in my opinion, number one, they don't want to be a burden on their family. That's the biggest thing. They always say they don't want to be a burden. So that's one reason why home sharing will take that away. Suddenly there is someone living with them, and instead of the younger person paying rent, they're going to do all those jobs around the house because that's the arrangement, that's the exchange that they have agreed with. The other thing I've learned about a lot of older people is they don't like to spend money. I think, and a lot of older people now, in their 80s, 90s, they're war babies. They grew up.
So they're frugal by nature.
They're very frugal. So not only have they grown up, in the war and rations and if you're cold, you put on a jumper, you don't turn on the heating. And because of that, they don't like to spend money as well, because they don't feel that their money is theirs to spend. They feel that that's the inheritance that they're leaving, not the legacy that they're leaving their children.
Right.
So again, they would be very, very hesitant to spend money. And I suppose, so that's another reason why home sharing works so well, because it is so affordable. It's €195 a month plus that. But I suppose one conversation that seems to be very receptive, or, a lot of older people are very receptive to when it comes to home sharing, is the beauty about home sharing is it's mutually beneficial. So they have something they can offer, but they have something that they would need in return. And the exact same with the younger person. They have something they need and something they can offer. So the older person, the householder, they have a spare bedroom. So they offer that spare bedroom. In return, they get help around the house, or company, or cutting the grass, or even going on little mini breaks or going to the theatre or the cinema, going for coffee, getting their nails done together.
Those small things, right?
Um, and the younger person then, in exchange for getting somewhere to live, they offer company and, help around the house. But the beauty for the older person is that as I said, they are, a lot of them are very receptive about. They want to help the younger generation. They're listening to the news every day. They're reading the newspapers. They know full well the housing crisis that we're in. And they know full well, maybe from their own grandchildren, that, poor Johnny can't afford to save for a deposit for
Sure.
a house because he's spending 1,000 every month
Yep.
on his rent and he's no money left to save at the end of the month. So the householder or the older person, they think, oh my God, this is amazing. So if I offer them a room and a nice home to live in, because I've done that, in 5 years' time, they'll be able to buy their own house.
Yeah.
And they would not be able to do that.
It's super, isn't it? It really, they really help each other, like company, mental stimulation, the finance, the help around the house. It seems to tick like so many boxes. I absolutely love it, right? And one of
Yeah.
the interviews I saw with you, one of the people you placed, they seem to genuinely get on really well. And also, he said, like the younger person was saying, he actually moved up to Dublin, and he was a little bit, or he could have seen how he would be lonely, like some
Yeah.
of his friends. And actually, it's kind of ironic because I think
Yes.
you would expect the older person to be talking about loneliness, but the younger person was. And I think that's such a beautiful way of solving that problem for both people. Very symbiotic, or whatever the word is.
Absolutely. And we're amazed. So we would have about 300 or 400 people registering on our database every month
Oh my
looking
God.
for accommodation.
Has that increased
And
significantly over the last few years?
I tell you, it increased by 25% after the government lifted the eviction ban. So literally overnight, it increased by 25%. We see different trends, like say for the last up until maybe a year ago, um, there would have been a high percentage of, so we'd have a certain, percentage of Irish people applying for accommodation. And then, the next highest percentage of nationalities applying for accommodation would have been Brazilian. And that's because, a lot of Brazilians would come here because it's actually cheaper for them to study English in Ireland than it is in Brazil. So they come over and, they work part-time and they're learning English. But we're now seeing a lot more people since COVID, a lot more people from China, from South Korea, India. So there's a lot, there's a greater diversity of different nationalities now who are looking into this as well.
And how do you navigate
Um,
those interpersonal those intercultural differences? Are they okay? Or is there a
eh,
bit of sandpapering to be done?
so look, like I say, we've about 300 or 400 people who apply on our database every month. That's a lot of, even just logistically to get through that.
Yeah.
So we have one main question, we ask on the application form, and it's a fairly in-depth application form. One of the main questions is, why do you want a home share? And if people say, oh, to save money or
Yeah.
it's cheap rent, we want to see that people want to do it more than just for the financial gain. So apart from that, and obviously English, their level of English has to be very, very good. Because communication is so important, especially, with older people who may have, hearing difficulties. They may not be, it might take them longer to catch on to somebody who might have a strong accent.
Yeah.
But apart from that, in terms of, we have all sorts of nationalities, of sharers who are home sharing, because we match people based on what the householder, what the older person would like, their preferences. For example, recently we've got one gentleman now who we have another option as well called help for housing. And that's a different option in terms of the older person. They don't necessarily have to be an older person. Anyone, they could rent out a room for about 2/3 of the market rent. Plus they would get 5 hours a week of company and support around the house. But there's no expectation that the renter has to be a presence in the house overnight.
Mm.
So it really, when we meet the person, the homeowner, the householder first, we get to know them, find out what they would like from home sharing. If they, do they have a preference on male or female, or even nationality? If they have a preference on, would they like the sharer to have a car so they could go off to the shops at the weekend, or go for trips, drive, or even, a lot of people, the sharer might drive the person they live with to the graveyard so they can visit, their loved one. So we go by that. We also go on, for the older person, what hobbies do they have? But this particular gentleman now in Dublin, he's renting out 2 rooms. And so this man he loves languages, absolutely loves languages. And he said to me, "Oh, look, if you've anybody from China, that would be amazing, because I'm actually in the middle of, I'm trying to learn Mandarin Chinese."
Wow.
So, and he loves French film. So, we actually found a lovely lady from China who was giving him some lessons, some language
Fantastic.
lessons. They'd sit down and watch French movies together. The other and the gentleman, the older gentleman, he's very academic, and he's very into theology and psychology. So he has a PhD student who's studying psychology.
Oh, wow.
So they
Fantastic.
are, sorry, he's doing PhD on psychology. So their conversations, to be honest with you, they go way
Yeah,
over
yeah.
my head. They're talking about Socrates and Plato, and I'm like, "Oh, is that the time? Right.
Oh, wow.
I'll see you next
Yeah,
month."
yeah.
Um,
That's
but
checkout time.
exactly. But so that's how we kind of match people together. As somebody
Wow.
says years ago, it's like it's like Airbnb and Match.com coming
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
So you have the housing piece, and then you also have the personality piece as well.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. So, um, you must have to be very good at interviewing people and really finding out who they are, and then matching both of those parties together. Um,
That comes with practice. I think it comes with a bit of maturity, bit of
right.
age.
And a bit of negotiation as
It's
well, Lucy, I guess, right? Negotiating terms. Like, do people ever look for
yeah,
maybe something that, well, initially isn't something that can be, oh, like I need you to be here every night at 7 o'clock, and the person might be like, well, I'm going to a college party and I'll be back at 11. You must have to
absolutely,
negotiate terms a little bit, right?
definitely. And we always say to every participant, we're there in the middle.
Mm,
We're not advocating for the householder. We're not advocating for the sharer. We're advocating, or we're on the side of the home share agreement,
mm,
of the actual arrangement, to make sure that everyone, is sticking to the terms, sticking within the boundaries, and people aren't being asked to overstep those boundaries.
yeah.
Because home sharing it's, compared to other, social care supports, it's extremely affordable. So you might have some families thinking, "Oh, this is great," and then slowly they might try and, get the sharer to, suddenly the sharer is expected to make dinner every night,
Mm.
or to help Mary put her pajamas on at night.
Oh, that's
But
really
that's the
tricky,
role
isn't
of,
it? Right? Because
yeah,
you develop a personal relationship, and then at some point, maybe there is a difficult day, and the person says, "Well, let me volunteer to make a dinner," and then that's expected. Then after that,
yeah,
I guess that's where you come in as
yeah,
uh,
absolutely. And,
to go between.
so yeah, so I think, it's up to us then, just to, I suppose sometimes we have to remind people of
Mm,
the expectations of home sharing, what home sharing is all about. And, once we explain, well, actually, prompting medication, or, making dinner every night or walking mum or dad to bed and, making sure that they get into bed safe and sound, we have to kind of remind them, well, that's more personal care, and especially the medication prompting. And then, we always say to people, look, you have to imagine, if there's any really important task that needs to be done every day, you have to imagine, how are you going to manage that if the sharer is on their 2-week holiday to Spain? Who's
Right.
going to do that then? And sometimes, look, life throws curveballs, there's emergencies sometimes. So the family, and us, we have to be happy and satisfied that, the world isn't going to come crashing down if the sharer suddenly,
Yeah.
is caught in traffic, or there's a major accident and they're not going to be home for 5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's
Um,
got to be a robust support structure, right? Not just totally dependent on, the sharer devoting their whole life to looking after the person, but it's more like an additional support than a primary support, right?
I don't, what 100%. I mean, usually with our sharers, the 75% of our sharers are working professionals. So they're out working all
Yeah.
day. Now some of them might work hybrid or, fully remotely. But, they're at work. So their role is, offering a certain number of hours, at least 10 hours a week of company,
Yep.
and maybe 3 nights a week. But they would say at the weekend, right, listen, I have nothing on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Um, so why don't I make us dinner, and the two of us can sit down and have dinner.
Yeah.
Uh, or um, yeah, so it's all about managing people's expectations.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
We have to obviously, and we have to be so careful about the type of people on both sides. We have to be like, if we met somebody like a householder, we have like, would I be happy living with them?
Yeah. That's one of the
Because
questions you ask yourself, right?
yes,
Right.
absolutely. Now it's great. We do have a trial period at the beginning,
Like 3 months.
whereby no, it's only about 2 weeks,
Okay.
2 to 4 weeks. And that's where the sharer would move in.
Mm.
And that's when they really get to know each other,
Yeah.
and see, is this working for both of them?
Yeah.
Before they move in, we obviously, go through a lot of vetting. So, all our sharers are Garda vetted. We go through a number of, checking a number of references. But, obviously they are very important things to do.
Yeah.
But we also, we kind of ask probing questions in a very nice way, as only us Irish people could do.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's one of our key skills.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I suppose, having lived a bit of life before, and I often joke, I wish I had a trial period in my marriage. Who probably would have saved me an awful lot of money. But that trial period is so expensive, or sorry, not expensive, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Because that's really when people get to know each other.
Yeah.
To see, is this working?
It probably is a good thing for people to do a trial of living together before they move in fully, right? It's not something that's
Yes.
very, very typical. Can I ask you, Lucie, a little bit about the business of HomeShare? So you were in the caring profession, then you went to being a flight attendant, and so on, and then back to the caring profession, and then you set up this business. But setting up a business quite different to just looking after people. Right now, you get into
Yeah.
budgets, finance, and tax, and compliance, and all these insurance, all these sort of sticky
Yeah.
issues. How did you find doing that? Was that like learn by doing, or did
Yeah.
you get like a strategic partner, or did you just kind of do a course, or how did you go about doing that?
So when I first heard about HomeShare, obviously I did a lot of research. I went over to the UK and met a few people over there who were, that they were running HomeShare programs themselves. Um, and I, because I was like, I'm single parent, and money was always a problem. Um, and my granddad passed away, um, and literally, yeah, I kind of used, he left me, a bit of inheritance, which is gratefully received, very sad, obviously, but that kept me going for the
Okay.
first, I mean, I was literally, I was actually, because I wasn't earning any money, so I was on the dole, I was on social protection for a while, at the beginning of setting up HomeShare.
Right. So
Um,
really bootstrapping it from the start.
Completely,
Yeah.
100%. Um, it was tough,
Bit of a risky
but
move.
it was a risky move. I was very much, no, at the time, it's funny, at the time I was living with another partner then, and that didn't work out well. And I nearly lost my house. My house was being repossessed. I
Oh
was
my
in
God.
court. There was an awful lot of stuff going on. And do you know what? What kind of saved me was my passion for home sharing.
Mm,
And I often say to people, which I wouldn't advise, but I did not have a plan B. I
mm.
didn't have a plan B. I was that determined
Wow.
that
All
this
in.
would work. All in. Literally, I literally jumped off that cliff, took a leap of faith. And like I wouldn't yeah, look, I wouldn't advise people to do it,
Yeah.
but I was so convinced, and I still am, that home sharing, the model is so good and it helped so many people. Um, it was only going to work. But it was tough. It was
Yeah.
very tough.
It sounds super
So,
tough. I
in
guess you took a
terms,
lot of inspiration from your conversations with people in the UK or abroad to see how they were doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. But I suppose that they were a good few years ahead. Um, and there were a lot of home share programs in the UK already.
Right.
So it was kind of established, in the UK. Um, so in terms of literally, I know nothing about business. I think maybe it might be in my genes. My dad was an entrepreneur and he was a very successful
Okay.
businessman. Um, but no one else in my family has ever set up their own business or anything. It's funny, my family kind of, they'll probably kill me for saying this, but they, some of them would kind of, they kind of saw this like a hobby, like kind of stamp
Mm,
collecting, nothing major, Um, but, I knew what I didn't know. And when it comes to, even though my dad was an accountant, um, I have no idea nor any interest in finance
you're
or
right.
tax or any of those horrible things. So the first thing I did was I got an accountant on
Okay.
board, who literally set up the business, like, with CRO,
Yeah.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. So, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm awful at or have no idea about.
Well,
So it was very much
that's a super good way to start, right? At least you know what to outsource or what to get help with.
ex-
And then
yeah,
double down on what you're good at. So it seemed like passion and grit really
yeah.
drove you to get this going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started this when my daughter, my youngest then, went into first year. No, she was in sixth class, I think. Um, and I thought, you know what, she's a bit older now. Let's just
Mm.
go for it. The children they were kind of having their own lives and,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
their head in their phones and they didn't need me as much. And I literally could leave them of an evening and go to a
Okay,
meeting and I wouldn't
okay,
have to get a babysitter, so it
okay,
was kind of,
okay.
it was
So
really like that.
the timing worked.
The timing worked. I mean, I always say to people, even though, I'd often pull 70-hour week, 60, 70 more some weeks at the beginning. I haven't worked in 7 years because
Mm.
I'm so passionate about it.
Wow,
Um,
that's
you
wonderful.
know, and that's why, I've often maybe had conversations or been invited to go into some universities, to chat to their business or entrepreneur students. And I always say to them, you have to love what you do. Like you have to,
Mhm.
and, you know, get used to all the no's because for every yes you get, you're going to get 200 no's.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to be gritty. You have to, yeah, you have to be able to take it on the chin and yeah,
You
just
have to be super determined, right? Did you find people? I know you said your family thought it was a bit of a hobby maybe at the start,
Mm.
like stamp collecting. But did you find people were receptive, or did you kind of have to get your first 10 or 20 home shares set up before you could say, look, we've got all these examples over here of this working really effectively. Would you like to be the next home share?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. Um, apologies to Pat Kenny if he's listening to this, because my first ever interview, crazy, was literally 2 months after I set up the home
Oh
share.
wow!
And I know, as I talk about, diving in the deep end, and I didn't have one match.
Okay.
And so, I was in News Talk studio, and he was like, putting me through my paces. And he was like, well, how many matches do you have? Oh, like 17. Yeah, we're very small
Yeah.
at the moment. So, like, fake, talk about fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it took a lot, you know, just knocking on doors, brochure dropping, calling into every hospital, every primary care center,
Wow. That's
um,
super face-to-face sales, cold calling. That is
yeah.
really.
Social media helped a lot.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Even,
Yeah.
yeah, very much so. I was on social media literally every single day.
Okay.
I felt that, what, if there's this constant presence on social media,
Mhm.
people go, oh, people will
There's
think,
more
oh, they're
trust.
still there. Oh,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
still around. And then any nice stories and, pictures.
Mm.
And, we would very often, collect a sharer and fill our car
Mm.
with their suitcases and bring them over to their new house. And, you know, um, so we'd have quite a good enough amount of followers, but well, about 8,000 followers on Facebook.
Yeah, that's pretty
Um,
solid, right?
yeah. So, and I think I'm so lucky that it's a very easy business, even though we're not for profit, CLG. So all our profits go back into the business.
Mm.
Um, but we're very lucky because it's a nice, simple but effective idea to sell.
Yeah.
So I'd hate to be opening up a restaurant or a coffee shop where there are hundreds of others in competition.
Yeah.
So I mean that was good, in terms of, home sharing was a new concept.
Like, did you do market research by collecting data or talking to people, or you just thought, I've got an idea, I've seen it work elsewhere? Yeah, it's more like that. Okay. Okay.
Remember
I
it,
love it.
literally.
I love it.
As I said, like there was no plan B, and,
Yeah.
and there was no major research. I'd gone to a couple of Leos at the local
Yeah.
enterprise office. I know they do amazing work.
They do. They do.
Unfortunately, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So I literally had no help,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And I think, and especially going to maybe, the HSC, different
Mm.
government departments, I could almost hear them say, oh, computer says no.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, oh no, no, we've enough on my desk now. I don't need another
It can be
idea.
disheartening for an entrepreneur, right?
Desperately
If
so.
they're kind of going, but
Desperately so.
but which box do you fit into? And you're like, well, I'm not sure I fit into any of those. And they're like, what do you want? You're like, I don't know. Help starting up my business. And they're like, well, we have this thing. I don't know if that applies. And if the supports don't apply to you very
Yeah.
directly, it can be hard to say, well, what support can I get? And well, if they're not business people themselves, how do they know what to advise the business
Yeah.
person to get, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, to this day, there's still disappointment,
Hmm.
especially with the government. We are saving them, millions. And, we've,
Mm.
showing them evidence of that. Yes. And I'm talking about the Department of Housing,
Yeah.
Department of Health. And because I I really feel passionately that if you're not in the big boys club, or if you don't
Mm.
have anyone, because it's still Ireland, so it's still about who you know.
Like you need to have
So
somebody batting for you on the inside.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you get
yeah.
any
We're
funding? Do you get any funding from the government? See, you're very in a very practical way solving a housing problem in a very efficient, elegant way, and you're getting no support, and that is mental. That is
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've met Minister Dara O'Brien, face to face, and no, nothing, nothing.
If you think of the money that it would take to build
Yep.
digs or accommodation for like 10 or 20 or 100 students, and you're doing the same thing with a fraction of that cost, right? And solving a social problem on the other side, the loneliness or whatever. That's incredible. Why are they not receptive to your?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Um, even, when I met Dara O'Brien this time last year, and I was saying, look, could you signpost even social housing tenants, older social housing tenants to this?
Mhm.
And he said, no, we want them out of their house. We want them to move on and to let young families move in,
Mm.
and move them into like one bed, age friendly, appropriate,
They don't
right
get they don't
sizing.
get they don't get political credit for suggesting your service because
It,
they need to
yeah,
be. Yeah.
it's frustrating. It is frustrating. The HSC, the higher echelons of the HSC, very frustrating. We're so grateful for the army of HSE employees like
Mhm.
public health nurses, social workers. They're amazing. They see the value. They see the difference,
Yeah.
home sharing makes to their older patients. So they are always referring on to us. But it's, yeah, Bernard Gloucester, who's the head of HSE now, very, very unprofessional run in with him, you know, saying, "Oh, home sharing is great, but what happens when it goes wrong?" And then he just ignored me then and moved away.
Wow.
So it
Bizarre.
is so disheartening. It's very, very disheartening, especially when I say to the government, the HSE, "I'm not looking for money. I don't want money.
Mm.
I'm just looking for you to signpost people to this option if they want it."
Yeah, so just send people or at least tell them that your service exists and then they can
Yeah,
avail of it. That I don't get it. Like we
it's
have this huge housing problem. You have
I
an
know.
elegant solution. The only thing I
Yeah,
can think of is they need to be seen to be solving it in a different way.
themselves.
They need to be seen to be solving it, not saying that you're solving it. But otherwise, but can I ask you
Yeah.
when they were saying, oh, if when the head of the HSC was saying that, oh, when it's good, it works, but what happens when it doesn't? But do you
Mm.
have any figures on your success rate of having people living together, uh, yeah, cordially?
Oh, I mean, the minimum, I don't have those figures, but I could, very comfortably say at least 95%.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the
Yes.
vast majority of the
Oh,
time.
vast, vast majority. And it's actually far safer than, me having worked in home care.
Mm,
Unfortunately, getting a phone call, uh, thankfully it wasn't that often, but it wasn't unusual to get a phone call from a family member to say, look, 50 quid's gone missing, or my mum's engagement ring is
oh
gone.
right,
Um, and, you can't pinpoint because there could be an army of people, and,
yeah,
the vast majority of carers are amazing. But like in every profession, there will be some bad apples sometimes.
yeah. Of course.
Whereas with home sharing, because the person who moves in, they literally become part of the family. They become like, and they're always saying, "Oh, Mary's my Irish mum," or "Oh,
Mm,
she's like my granddaughter. It's like she's been here forever."
mhm.
Um, and because we do monthly home visits as well, and we're available 24/7, so
Yeah,
we are keeping a very close eye on
that's great.
things.
That's great,
And
right?
the sharers know, God forbid, but they know that if they do something wrong, if there's a safeguarding issue, they're out of the house that day, and
Mm,
they're back paying, 1,000 a month on rent.
yeah. So there's a
That's a
lot.
deterrent in itself.
There's a lot on the line for them as well, right? The
Yeah.
roof over their head and then a much higher rent. But
Yeah.
I think it's very
I mean,
reassuring to know that you're always watching over the
oh,
whole
no,
process.
100%. Even this morning, I was at a funeral.
Mm,
Unfortunately, one of our householders passed away. And it's like every funeral we go to, when they're giving the eulogy, they always mention the shower. It's like, oh, And thank God for Deirdre, who looked after mum so well, and she's one of the family, and mum would not have been able to stay at home if it wasn't for Deirdre, and things like that. So it's,
Wow.
it's much more than just right. I'll give you a room to live in if
Yeah.
you cut my grass. It's
Yeah.
far deeper than that.
Yeah. You must find this incredibly fulfilling, Lucie.
It is, yeah. No, it is. It is. It's if I'm having, which is rare, but in life, it's, you might not be firing off all
Oh,
cylinders
yeah.
one day, or, you're having a bad hair day, which happens a lot.
Yeah.
But, whenever we go and visit our matches, you just come out beaming from ear to ear because you can see the difference that it's making. Not just to the older person, but to their family members, to the sharer. And the neighbors are always talking to the sharer saying, thank God you moved in. Oh my God, we don't have to worry anymore because we know you're there.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So it's almost building up a little bit of a community around the person then as well, right? Because then they're interacting with the share, they've more to chat with,
Yeah.
and there's more people to visit, and the family are coming. And I
Yeah.
love the idea that the family have all this extra quality time then with their parent, and it's not just
Yeah.
it's not just caring for them, because probably the parent doesn't want that, and the child doesn't want that easier, right? So they just want to focus on enjoying time together.
Exactly. And even, like last night, this morning, unfortunately, one of our householders is in a hospital at the moment. And, part of one of the rules of home sharing is if the householder is in hospital, that the sharer would go and visit a couple of times a week to keep their relationship alive. And, bring in any washing, or, bring in, a bag of grapes or whatever it might be. So that also, relieves some pressure from the family as well. So they would say, okay, I'm going in to visit your mum tomorrow. Oh, brilliant. I won't need to go in tomorrow. I'll go in on Friday.
That's
So
great.
it's, but then that usually comes naturally for the sharer because they're genuinely really worried
Yeah,
because
of course.
it's their granny almost that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
living
yeah.
with.
Yeah, it's an
They're worried
extended member
about
of
it.
the family. Yeah, that's lovely.
Absolutely.
That's so
Yeah.
nice. I've a question that I guess when I watched the interview you did on RT Radio, and you're talking to Ray Darcy, I have a question for you, because he was asking you about money a lot. And my sister worked for NGOs and she worked for charities before, and she was always like, we're doing good, high quality work, and we need to be rewarded as such, and that's how you get and you keep good people. How do you feel when people, like, I don't know, challenge you by talking about money and how much is this and how
Yes.
much are you getting? And like, I think you
Yes.
deserve to be rewarded for the incredible value that you're bringing to the people and to the,
Yeah.
to
I
the
mean,
society.
our salaries, well, I can tell you, they're like 40, 50 grand a year,
Yeah.
So as a new graduate going into banking, they're probably on at least double that,
Yeah.
21-year-old. In terms of, so we charge a monthly support fee,
Mm.
195, well, 240, but like €45 of that goes straight in on VAT. That's tax.
That's
We
gone
don't
straight
see
away.
that. But if people say, "Oh, that's very expensive," we say, "Well, look, that's like we only raised. I only raised our fees once in 7 years, and that's how much it's costing to pay to run the business
Yeah.
and to pay the salaries and everything in the office and
Yeah.
petrol,
It's an
fuel,
organization. It's an organization to run. But do you ever get frustrated if people are like challenging too much? It's like, well, you're not becoming millionaires doing it. You're providing
no,
you're providing a good service, and you deserve to be
yeah,
rewarded for it. I think
yeah. I
it's
mean, look, I think for the vast majority of people don't.
Mm.
Some people do, but we stick to our guns and say, look, that's they are our fees. You are paying for. Not only are you paying for us being available 24/7 and us visiting every month, but you're paying for our expertise
Mm.
and our, you know, i- combined combined experience of 100 years
Mhm.
between all of us working in healthcare. So, that's all. You're also paying for that. You're paying for our expertise in, if there are challenging times, we're there moderating, mediating, making sure everything's okay. And if, we don't push anyone, on, like we get loads of phone calls from people saying, oh my God, this is amazing. And tell me
Mhm.
more. And, oh, we'll ring you back in a week or in a month. We don't cold call them again. If they want to do it, they come to us. So, we would never go
Okay,
in
so it's
search for business.
a very soft sell in that way, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we never ring anybody. It's all referrals that we
Mm.
would get.
Mm.
So that, say, the public health nurse or the GP or, or a neighbor, would ring to say, oh, look, really interested in that. But then if they're really interested, they'll come back to us. A lot of the time, maybe the older person is very nervous and hesitant. And that's fine because, if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. We don't push anyone to do this. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, look, when it comes to money, it's, it's, look, it's one of those things. I suppose it's knowing your worth as well. So I've never apologized for our fees. I think in comparison to what similar home share organizations provide, we are extremely, extremely
Cost effective, right?
very cost effective because
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of work in the background.
I think for
Um,
the reassurance that you provide, and for the security you provide, and then the ability to connect the people, I think that's phenomenal. It's totally worth it. I guess it's a bit of a bee in my bonnet, because I think, like, people need to survive, and they need to be able to pay their bills, and they need to be able to grow their organization, and we can't just expect them to become a charity just if they're doing
yeah,
social work. That doesn't solve that problem. We need to. It's like if you love
yeah,
you have a favorite restaurant or coffee shop, you kind of have to go there and support it if you want it to still be there for you the next time.
yeah,
You know.
yeah,
So if you don't
yeah,
support it, and we saw that during COVID, right? Things we didn't support didn't continue. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
can I ask, if someone is just on the career side, if someone's like captivated by your caring profession, and the idea of giving back to community and society, and they're thinking of getting into it, do you think, like, what advice would you have for them following a healthcare, like nursing or medicine, or do you think there's other routes, or what would you suggest if you were yourself giving advice to yourself going back to start this journey again?
Um, if I was giving advice to myself, 20 years ago, I honestly, it probably sounds like a cliche, but I actually wouldn't change anything because,
Okay.
everything that I've gone through and I've done and work wise, it's got me to where I am today. And even, even skills I picked up while I was cabin crew, that's very much, that's helped me with my interpersonal skills. And maybe it's helped me to bite my tongue a little bit as well and just have that nice smile on your face, but you're
Right.
actually thinking something else. Um, but, for anyone, who was thinking about getting into healthcare or social care, the only advice I'd give is, look, you really make sure you're getting into something that you're as close to passionate about as possible.
Hmm.
Um, whether you're wanting to set up a business or just as an employee. It's hard enough getting out of bed in the morning. God, I'm finding that now, especially right in the middle of menopause. Trying to get out of bed is a bloody nightmare. So it's hard enough getting out of bed, but God, I can't imagine how hard it is getting out of bed to a job that your passion isn't there. You're not really
Right.
into it. It's 9 to 5. It pays the bills.
Your heart's
We
not in
spend
it.
so much time at work. You
Yeah.
have to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Good
Yeah, so I
advice.
mean that would be my main advice. I say that to my children all the time. If you want to, sweep the streets, or if you want to be an astronaut, or whatever you want, I don't care what you want to do.
Yeah.
Just make sure you want to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. they want to, we want to have people in the social care services that are really passionate about what they do and passionate about
Yeah.
helping people. And
But especially because, I mean, look, social and healthcare sectors, I mean, they notoriously have very low pay compared to,
yeah,
financial sector,
you're not doing it for the money,
insurance sector. You're
right?
not doing it. And if people think they're going to earn money, no, maybe unless you're going to be a consultant or, a professor
Mm.
or something, no, you're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think your skills and your background in the care, but in the care sector, but also on the airlines, that's got to be huge because you're interacting with so many people. You get to know all these different
yeah,
personalities. You get to learn about negotiating, about customer service, about resolving conflict, about all these key skills, and tons of communication, of course, right?
absolutely. I mean, look, I could write a book, very funny, and for one. Uh, that there might be some really scary moments, but then very funny moments as well. Like I remember there's one time and the captain came down because we were on the old big jumbos, like the
Yeah.
747s and the old ones as well. They're all in a graveyard in America somewhere now. But the captain coming down to say, look, don't be alarmed, but there's one of the lights or one of something that is lighting up in the cockpit, and it's not you don't want that lighting up.
Okay.
Um, and so I had to sit down, and my crew seat was opposite passengers, and trying to pretend everything is
Oh
fine, but
wow.
you're like, oh my god, I'm getting ready to die
Oh
here,
my God, that's your best poker face ever.
Yeah. Sure. Yes, we just have to really go, no, everything is fine, nothing to see here. Um, and, but then, could be, had really funny times where, there was a couple who were very amorous.
Okay.
Um, and they went down to join a certain club,
Okay.
on the plane. And, so just for the giggles, I went up to first class and got a couple of glasses of champagne.
Okay.
So I said to all the passengers in the area, when they come out, big round of applause. So they came out
Oh
and
wow.
handed them. So, it was great fun. So, you kind of, and I think as well in business, you have to be very personable.
Mm,
Like we talk to people like I'm talking to you now. We
yeah.
don't do the sales pitch. We don't have, you know, we don't read from, a list of questions going, right, what time do you get up at?
Mm,
We have a kind of a flow of conversation so that people have to trust me and the team. And I think
yeah.
if they trust us, then they're going to trust the idea of HomeShare. And they know that if we're approachable, they're going to come and tell us if there's any issues. Whereas, if you don't have that personable, trusting relationship with, for example, that there happened a couple of times where, with the sharer, it hasn't gone well or it's not working out. But the family, without exception, say, no, 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 we still want a home share because we trust you, we trust the
Mm.
system. So I think anyone in whatever job or business you're in, people buy from people, not from a website. They buy from people.
I love
So
it. I love it. Lucie,
yeah,
that is fantastic. I think it's a credit to you that they're coming back and they're trusting you so much. They're saying, look, maybe that match didn't work for whatever reason, but look, we want to give it another go because we like the service so much. I think it's a wonderful service. Good on you. Fair play. You're solving a loneliness problem, a social problem, a housing problem, and you're providing jobs, right? You're providing opportunities for people as well. So it ticks tons of boxes, and you've created very fulfilling work for yourself out of a difficult situation, being on the dole, right? Being
yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
starting from scratch. So I hope you take time to pat yourself on the back every now and again and take a step back and realize what you've accomplished.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I don't. But every now and again, I'm like, it's like, oh yeah, I think it's when I meet people and we do our visits, I'm like, oh my God, I had a big part to play in that, which is really rewarding, really, really
Yeah,
rewarding. Yeah, yeah.
that's super. That's super. So Look, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today and tell me all about your journey. I really appreciated it and loved hearing all your steps, right? The ups and downs and the rewards on the way. And I think people are going to get a lot of great insights into it and hopefully some encouragement about grit and consistency and just making things work and then outsourcing things that maybe aren't your favorite thing, like accounting, for example.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And but I suppose the parting shot is I can't stress enough, that with all the no's, your passion is going to get you through all those no's. That's going to keep you going. The
Yeah.
passion's going to keep you going because there's only so many times you can get knocked back. I don't know what the statistic is of the number of businesses that fail in the first 5 years,
Oh,
but
yeah, it's huge. Like 9 out of 10 or something like that.
yeah, so I think I would reckon, that 10% of businesses that continue, I think possibly it's because the person behind it is passionate about the
Mm.
business
Hmm.
and like me, don't encourage it, but no plan B. You just have that determination that
Yeah.
this is going to work.
Keep going through all the difficult days and all the no's and all the rejections and
Yes.
all the challenges. If people
Yeah.
want to find out more about you, is your website, HomeShare, the best place to go, or is it Instagram, or what do you suggest?
Probably the website, which is the homeshare .ie. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, although not very good at Instagram. That's another outsourcing I'm going to have to look into. And we're on Facebook. Yeah, kind of all the general social media handles, but probably the website is probably the best because it goes into what home sharing is all about. It goes, it has very in-depth FAQ sections as well.
Right.
And it goes, not like normal businesses that they hide the costs. We're very transparent. So
I love it.
all the costs and everything, that's all on the website. Yeah.
That's all there. Fantastic. I'll put all those links below the video so people can access them easily. So that's
Appreciate
great.
that.
Thanks so much for the
Ronan,
chat. Really appreciate it.
no, it's so good talking to you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Hi, folks. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more of these soon, please subscribe and support the channel. Thanks so much.